As soon as I started watching Godzilla Final Wars, I knew this would be the most difficult movie to place on my scale in the whole list. Because this movie is just insane. Like, it's a wacky ass, cartoony, like, Matrix, Alien Resurrection esque, kind of just crazy over the top. Just, okay. I was just immediately flabbergasted by the way that this movie is directed. There's all these like crazy mutant like X-Men people who have superpowers and they're like there to defend the Earth from kaiju, and they're jumping all around and floating in the air and the camera's spinning around them all the time, and there's like cheesy rock music playing during the monster scenes. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? I I had to look up this movie and find out why it was the way it was. And according to the director of this movie, I forget his name, but he was a fan of the 70s era, like Showa series Godzilla films, and he felt like the charm of those movies was completely lost in the 80s and 90s, and he doesn't like the Heisei series as much, because he's much less interested in the whole fixation on how to stop Godzilla, and much more interested in just the having each movie just be an all-out brawl, and having it be, like, very indicative of its time when it came out. And so he's a fan of the cheese factor of these movies, and that shines through so spectacularly in this film. Because, like, I don't want to call this movie bad, even though it has lots of really bad special effects and really fucking cheesy, stupid, like, camera work and effects and stuff. It is, like, clever the way it's done a lot of the time. Like, the way the guys with the superpowers, the way their fights are shot, it's very, like, lots of close-ups and lots of cuts, but it's constantly cutting from one shot to the next in a way that flows. Like, you can always tell what's going on. It's very easy to follow, and it looks like it's made on a budget, but it's still, like, it gets across what's going on. You understand, like, you feel the weight of the punches and everything. And even though almost all of the monsters are like ugly CGI creatures, they're not like. It's not really that much of a bother, because I'm kind of glad. Okay, there's a lot of reasons I could see someone easily thinking this movie is dog shit at a glance, but I'm so glad that this movie exists, because it's not really my cup of tea necessarily. Like, I don't like it that much, but I could easily see it being way up someone's alley because it's such a niche thing, and it's so weird and so out there that someone who wants to see this kind of movie, like, they're gonna find it like it's a needle in a haystack, and they're gonna find it and be like, finally, fuck, like, I love this. This is amazing, you know? And that's definitely the way I would rather Godzilla go out. You know, if we have to end the franchise again, I would much rather it be in a movie that's like this spectacular, just like an artist's vision, rather than it being some homogenized, cobbled together like studio schlock. Like, because that is one way to describe the Heisei series, is that you could say it feels homogenized because it cuts away so much of the weird bullshit from the older movies. But, you know, obviously for people who were tired of the stupid bullshit, those movies are the best. So, you know, there's a little something for everyone in Godzilla Final Wars, I think. I think, well, I don't know, it's kind of, because, like, there's just some weird bullshit in it. Like, there are kaiju attacking all over the world. There's, the American Godzilla from the Matthew Broderick film, now named Zilla. Zilla is attacking Australia. You've got, like, I think Rodan's attacking New York, and there's just, like, all sorts of different monsters from all over the movies. Even Hedorah, the big poop monster thing, that thing makes a comeback, like, very briefly. I think, was Baragon in this? I think Baragon was in it. The spider and the praying mantis from Son of Godzilla. You got, like, all sorts of them from all over the franchise. They're in this. And for the first half of the movie, there's just, like, these humans going around trying to figure out what the plot is, in a way. Like, the villains are these aliens. They're space aliens, like in the classic movies, but these new aliens look ridiculous. They're, like, they've got heavy, like, eyeshadow on, and they're, like, wearing big black trench coats, and they move their hands around, and they go and shit. And the main villain is just kind of like this punk looking, like, punk rock teenager guy with the trench coat and makeup and the piercings and the belts and everything, and he's just kind of like he looks like he's, you know, cosplaying as a Final Fantasy character, but he's acting like a whiny asshole. the entire time, so like he's a really fun villain to watch. And among the heroes, one of the main characters is this guy. I don't remember his name, but I read that he is a professional wrestler, and he is American, and he speaks English through the entire movie, and he plays like a ward like general or something. So he's just like this big mustachioed general guy, and he's talking to everyone like, "Well, I don't agree with that." And he's got a katana on his hip, and he actually pulls out the katana and uses it to cut down a few bad guys near the end of the movie, and he like carries it on his shoulder, like Rurouni Kenshin, and oh my fucking god, there's like. And the thing is, Godzilla himself doesn't really show up until halfway into the movie, but the movie's like 2 hours long, so you get an hour of these crazy-ass human fights, and an hour of crazy-ass monster fights. And the thing is that this movie is like all fighting. The plot doesn't matter at all. Like, I barely paid attention to any of it because it was just all like utter nonsense and like just sci-fi like babbling about, oh, there's the Exians, we have to stop the Exians before they attack, and they've got a new monster that they're calling Monster X, and it's like, oh gee, where have I heard that before? And sorry, one sec. And but yeah, eventually they get Godzilla, they awaken Godzilla, he's like frozen in the Arctic or something, and they get him to just stomp around the world, killing all of the kaiju that are attacking, and it's simultaneously like just great and also a little disappointing, because a lot of the fights go by pretty quickly, but what's great about it is that they all end spectacularly. Like, when Godzilla fights the giant spider, he dodges one of the webs it shoots out and then grabs the web and then swings around the spider and tosses him out of the atmosphere. When he fights the praying mantis, he like throws the praying mantis into like an electrical tower and impales it through its chest, and just lots of stuff like that. Finally, fucking Gigan makes his big comeback. I'm honestly surprised I haven't seen Gigan in like more movies outside of like his first couple, because I thought Gigan was a really cool design, and the fact that I had to wait this long to see him again, it's kind of, I mean, it makes sense. I guess Gigan's a little bit of a too wacky design to fit the tone of the Heisei series, but he is a cool guy, and he is back in this movie, and he's like more ridiculous than ever. The aliens actually soup him up with even bigger weapons. Like, they replace his big like scythe arms with like double chainsaws on each hand, and Mothra shows up and he fights Mothra a little bit. He launches these two razor sharp discs out of his chest that work like boomerangs, so they come back, and he like shoots down Mothra with those, and then the idiot turns around and the blades come back and cut his own head off. And it's great. And yeah, after all that, Godzilla finally confronts Monster X, and Monster X looks like a freaky, like, alien thing. It's kind of cool looking. It's like a weird metallic. It's got like a big long head, like a xenomorph almost. And it shoots like this tri-beam out of its, like, it looks like it has a couple of half heads on each of its shoulders, but then partway through the fight, it separates all three of its heads, and then it morphs into King Ghidorah, and it's like a ha, gotcha moment, because it's actually King Ghidorah all along, and this is the big final climactic fight of the movie. And damn, I mean, yeah, this movie's ridiculous. All the CGI monsters look retarded, and yeah, in general, a lot of this movie feels retarded, but it's just such a blast. It's so much fun. Like, I'd probably give it like a 7, just because it's, you know, it's not like the best fights in the series. It's not like it doesn't have a great plot. But because the humans are constantly fighting, and because they are constantly just, you know, the plot is ridiculous and, like, is very sparse, you don't have to bother paying attention. You can just have this on and have fun with it. You know, it's like a Showa series movie. You know how, like, I complained about Godzilla vs. Megaguirus and how it felt like a Showa series movie, but just like a little bit more updated special effects. Like, this is how you bring back the Showa series tropes correctly, by funneling it through your own weird autistic fan vision of what you liked about them and just amplifying it up, like ramping it up to 10. Just like, this is the most autistic Godzilla movie by a lot. And I mean that in the best way possible. It's so ridiculous. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to throw out there, I noticed that some of these Millennium series movies, I've picked up on a couple of bits where it seemed like they were just casually throwing shade at the American Godzilla, and I thought they were really funny. Like, especially in this movie, where Zilla himself shows up, and then Godzilla shows up, and just completely fucking wrecks him. Like, he throws him into a building, and then blasts him with fire, and he's just dead, like, in 10 seconds. Or, a couple of movies ago, actually, in the beginning of GMK, there was like a throwaway line about something like, oh, didn't Godzilla attack New York recently? And they're like, oh, well, that's what the Americans think, but I don't think that's actually what happened. Like, I think that was something else. So, I could be wrong about this next one. Like, this one I'm going a bit out on a limb here, but I don't remember which movie it was in, but in one of them they said something about, like, oh, God, like, why is it always raining so much? Like, because the American Godzilla had more rain in it than, like, any other movie I've ever seen. It's like 2.5 hours long, and it's just raining constantly through almost that whole movie. Just tons of rain all the time. So I really hope that was intentionally throwing shade at the movie for that, because that was weird. But yeah, no, all that aside, Godzilla Final Wars, just... man, like, if you've ever played, like, a Bayonetta game or something, just imagine a movie, like, just made out of, like, the cutscenes from that game. I mean, not like the story, because the cutscenes of Bayonetta actually suck, but, like, the action scenes in Bayonetta. Just imagine a whole movie like that, but with giant monsters. Well, Bayonetta has giant monsters in it. So yeah, it's Bayonetta the movie. Watch Godzilla Final Wars, it's cool. Oh, wait. Can't forget to mention the most important thing about it. The part that absolutely had me laughing my ass off the entire time. They brought back Godzilla's ugly-ass son from the Showa series, and he's just kind of like a weird little subplot where this little boy and his grandpa find him out on Mount Fuji, and they just kind of like have Minya in the back of their truck, just sitting around being a dumbass. They drive him around, and he sees his dad, Godzilla, blowing stuff up, and he's all going like, wah, 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 and they're like, what? What do you want? And he like tries to get back in the car, trying to get them to take him to Godzilla. And so they let him sit in the passenger seat of their car, and he just, like, is a stupid animal, so he just casually reaches over and grabs at the steering wheel, and they're like, And then, of course, at the end of the movie, once Godzilla has killed King Ghidorah, and, the fights are over, the battle's been won, Godzilla doesn't die at the end of the movie. Instead, he just walks off into the sunset with his son, and it's actually pretty sweet, and I like it. Yeah. I said 7 out of 10 already. There you go, that's it.